At some point in life, many people are quietly handed a story about how aging is supposed to end. The story goes like this: when your body slows down, when the stairs feel steeper than they used to, when keeping up with the house becomes overwhelming, and when your children are busy building their own lives, there is only one logical next step: a nursing home. It is often presented not as a choice, but as an inevitability. As if reaching a certain birthday automatically signs you up for a room down a long hallway with fluorescent lights and a shared television. But the reality is more complicated and more hopeful than that story suggests. Today, more than 11 million Americans over the age of 65 live alone. Some are widowed, some are divorced, some simply never married. Many of them value their independence deeply. Yet when conversations about safety and support begin, the assumption often jumps straight to institutional care. The median cost of a nursing home in the United States is now over $9,000 a month. In certain states such as Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Jersey, that number can climb beyond $15,000 a month, and that is typically for a semi-private room. Not a private apartment, not your own kitchen, a shared space. For many families, those numbers are shocking, yet the emotional pressure remains. If mom falls again, what then? If dad forgets his medication, what then? If something happens in the middle of the night, what then? Fear has a way of narrowing our vision until only one option seems visible. But what if a nursing home is not the first step? What if for many people it should be the last one considered rather than the default? I want to tell you about a woman I will call Dorothy. She is 74 years old. For more than 3 decades, she worked as a librarian in Portland, Oregon. She loved the quiet rhythm of books being returned, the gentle conversations about novels and biographies, the sense that knowledge was always within reach. Her husband passed away 6 years ago. Since then, she has lived alone in the same home they shared for decades. Every corner of that house carries a memory. The kitchen table where they drank coffee every morning, the garden they planted together, the hallway lined with family photos. Dorothy has 2 children. They love her deeply. They call every Sunday without fail. But they live in different states. They have jobs, mortgages, teenagers of their own. They cannot simply pack up and move back, and Dorothy would never ask them to. For a while, she tried staying with her daughter in Denver. On paper, it seemed ideal. Family under one roof, someone always nearby. But after a few months, Dorothy felt like she was living in someone else's routine. She hesitated before using the kitchen. She turned the television down lower than she preferred. She felt watched when she went out for a walk. Her daughter meant well, but concern can sometimes feel like control. Eventually, Dorothy said gently, "I love you, but I need my own front door." That sentence carried more weight than anyone realized. Next, the family arranged for a live-in home care aide. The cost was about $5,500 a month. The aide helped with meals, reminders for medication, and light housekeeping. At first, it seemed like a solution. Dorothy could stay in her home and still have support. But over the next 5 months, 3 different aides cycled through. Each time someone new arrived, Dorothy had to explain her allergies, her schedule, the way she liked her tea, which drawer held the spare batteries. The constant adjustment was exhausting. Care is not only about tasks, it is about trust, familiarity, and comfort. Without continuity, even good care can feel unsettling. Eventually, her children suggested trying a nursing home. Dorothy agreed reluctantly. She wanted to be reasonable. She wanted to prove she was open-minded. She packed a small suitcase and moved into a semi-private room. She lasted 3 days. She later described the experience not as cruel, but as impersonal. The hallways smelled strongly of disinfectant. The lighting never seemed to change. Her roommate kept the television on all night. Staff members were polite but busy, very busy. She was no longer Dorothy, the retired librarian who loved poetry and gardening. She was room 214, bed B. Her experience reflects a larger systemic issue. Across the country, many nursing homes struggle with staffing shortages. When there are not enough aides for the number of residents, even compassionate caregivers are forced to rush. During the day, one aide may be responsible for 7 or 8 residents. At night, that number can increase significantly. This is not about blaming staff. It is about acknowledging reality. When care becomes stretched thin, personalization disappears. So Dorothy went home, unsure of what to do next. What she discovered surprised her. It is called an adult family home. The name sounds technical, but the concept is simple. Imagine a regular house in a regular neighborhood. It might have a small front yard, a porch, maybe a dog next door. Inside, instead of one family, there are 2 to 6 older adults living together. The home is licensed for care, and a trained caregiver lives on site. Support is available 24 hours a day, but the setting feels like a household rather than an institution. In many areas, the average monthly cost ranges between $3,000 and $5,000. In some states, Medicaid programs may help cover part of the expense, depending on eligibility. Compared to the cost of a traditional nursing home, it can be significantly more affordable. But beyond cost, what matters most is atmosphere. In a small setting, caregivers learn your name quickly. They notice if you prefer oatmeal or eggs. They see when you are quieter than usual. Meals are often cooked in the same kitchen everyone shares. The living room might have a sofa and a bookshelf instead of rows of wheelchairs. Dorothy visited several adult family homes before choosing one. She asked questions about staff training, emergency procedures, and how medications were managed. She spoke with other residents. She paid attention to how the caregiver interacted with them. These are important steps for anyone considering this option. Licensing, inspection records, and references matter. A home-like setting does not automatically guarantee quality. Research and visits are essential. When Dorothy finally moved in, something shifted. Within weeks, she found herself helping set the table for dinner. She began reading aloud in the evenings to another resident who had trouble seeing. She still needed assistance with certain tasks, but she did not feel erased. She felt included. The lesson here is not that adult family homes are perfect for everyone. Needs vary widely. Some individuals require specialized medical care that only larger facilities can provide. Others may thrive with minimal assistance. The point is that alternatives exist, and understanding them can transform fear into informed choice. Aging brings physical changes. Muscles may weaken, balance may become less steady. Chronic conditions such as arthritis, diabetes, or heart disease may require closer monitoring. It is wise to plan for these realities. That planning should include open conversations with family, a clear understanding of finances, and an honest assessment of medical needs. Speak with your primary care provider about what level of support might be appropriate in the coming years. Review medications regularly. Address fall risks in the home by improving lighting, removing loose rugs, and installing grab bars where necessary. These practical steps can delay or even prevent the need for higher levels of care. The deeper issue, however, is psychological. Losing independence is one of the greatest fears people express as they age. Independence is tied to identity. When you can choose when to wake up, what to eat, and who to see, you feel like yourself. Any care model that preserves as much autonomy as possible tends to support emotional well-being. Dorothy's story is just one example. Across the country, thousands of older adults are quietly seeking options that allow them to remain themselves while still staying safe. The first step is simply knowing that the path is not as narrow as it may appear. As more families begin questioning the assumption that a nursing home is the only realistic answer, another model has quietly been growing, especially in certain parts of the country. It is called senior co-housing, and at first glance it looks like a small neighborhood rather than a care facility. The difference lies not just in the buildings, but in the philosophy behind them. In a senior co-housing community, each resident has a fully private home. That means your own front door, your own kitchen, your own bathroom, your own living room. You are not sharing a bedroom with a stranger. You are not lining up for meals on a fixed schedule. You control your space. But just outside your door, there is something many older adults find themselves missing: intentional community. One of the most frequently referenced examples is Silver Sage Village in Boulder, Colorado. It opened in 2007 and includes 16 units designed specifically for residents aged 55 and older. The people who live there share common areas such as a large kitchen for group dinners, gardens, and gathering spaces. They organize events together. They check in on one another. They make collective decisions about maintenance and community guidelines. The key difference between co-housing and a traditional retirement complex is that the residents themselves are deeply involved. There is no distant corporate office making rules from another state. Instead, neighbors sit around a table and talk through what they want their shared life to look like. That participation requires effort, but it also creates ownership and belonging. Loneliness is not just an emotional discomfort. Research has shown that chronic social isolation can increase the risk of heart disease, cognitive decline, depression, and even premature mortality. When older adults live alone without consistent social interaction, the effects can extend beyond mood and into physical health. Elevated stress hormones, disrupted sleep, and reduced immune function are all linked to prolonged isolation. Co-housing addresses this in a practical way. You can retreat to your private home when you need quiet, but you also know that community dinners happen a few times a week. You know that someone will notice if your curtains stay closed for days. That quiet layer of accountability often brings peace of mind, not only to residents, but also to their adult children. From a financial perspective, co-housing can also be more manageable than many people assume. By sharing certain costs such as landscaping, maintenance, utilities for common spaces, and even bulk grocery purchases for shared meals, monthly living expenses can decrease significantly compared to maintaining a large home alone. Some communities report reductions of 40 to 50% in shared operational costs. Of course, there is usually an initial buy-in or purchase of the unit, so long-term planning is important. It is not a last-minute solution. It is something to explore while you are still relatively healthy and able to participate in the planning process. Not everyone is suited for this model. It requires communication skills, flexibility, and a willingness to compromise. If you strongly prefer complete independence without meetings or shared responsibilities, co-housing may feel burdensome. But for those who crave connection and mutual support, it can be transformative. I once read a comment from a resident in a senior co-housing community who said she did not move there because she was forced to. She moved because she was tired of eating dinner alone in front of the television. That small statement carries profound meaning. Many older adults are physically capable of living alone, but emotionally worn down by the silence. Now let us turn to an option that may be even more accessible for millions of seniors who are mostly independent but need occasional assistance. It is known as the village model. The village model is built around a simple principle: aging in place with support. Instead of relocating to a new residence, you remain in your own home. You keep your routines, your neighbors, your favorite grocery store, but you join a membership-based organization, typically nonprofit, that coordinates practical services and social opportunities. For an annual fee that often ranges between $200 and $500, members gain access to volunteer drivers who can take them to medical appointments, assistance with minor home repairs, help with technology issues, and invitations to social gatherings. Some villages also provide vetted referrals for professional services such as plumbers, electricians, and healthcare providers. There are now more than 350 village organizations operating across the United States, and the number continues to grow. In many communities, these programs are started by older adults themselves who recognize the gap between complete independence and institutional care. From a health perspective, this model can be especially powerful because it addresses the small barriers that often snowball into larger crises. For example, imagine an older adult who stops driving due to vision changes. Without transportation, they may begin skipping medical appointments or delaying prescription refills. They may stop attending social events. Over time, missed checkups can allow manageable conditions like high blood pressure or diabetes to worsen. Social withdrawal can contribute to depression, which in turn may reduce appetite, disrupt sleep, and weaken the immune system. A simple ride to the doctor or the grocery store can interrupt that downward spiral. Regular contact with volunteers or fellow members provides informal monitoring. If someone seems confused, unusually fatigued, or emotionally withdrawn, concerns can be raised early, before a minor issue becomes an emergency. It is important to be realistic. The village model does not replace full-time medical supervision. If someone requires round-the-clock assistance with bathing, mobility, or complex medical treatments, additional professional care will be necessary. But for the large percentage of older adults who are still largely independent, this layer of support can extend safe living at home by years. Proactive planning remains essential. Start by assessing your current health honestly. Can you manage medications accurately? Are there stairs that could become hazardous if balance declines? Consider scheduling a fall risk assessment with a healthcare provider or physical therapist. Strength and balance exercises, such as Tai Chi or gentle resistance training, have been shown to reduce fall risk when practiced consistently. Reviewing your home environment for tripping hazards, improving lighting, and installing handrails are simple but powerful preventative steps. Nutrition also plays a critical role in maintaining independence. As we age, appetite may decrease and nutrient absorption can change. Protein intake becomes especially important for preserving muscle mass and strength. Adequate hydration supports cognitive clarity and cardiovascular stability. If cooking becomes tiring, community meal programs, shared dinners in co-housing settings, or even meal delivery services can prevent malnutrition, which is a surprisingly common but often overlooked issue among seniors living alone. Mental health deserves equal attention. Depression in older adults is frequently underdiagnosed because symptoms may be mistaken for normal aging. Persistent sadness, loss of interest in activities, changes in sleep patterns, and unexplained fatigue are not simply part of getting older. They are signals worth addressing. Social models like co-housing and the village system naturally create more opportunities for interaction, which can act as protective factors against depression. Financial planning is another cornerstone. Meet with a financial advisor who understands elder care costs. Review long-term care insurance policies if you have them. Explore Medicaid eligibility rules in your state well before a crisis occurs. Waiting until after a hospitalization to make decisions often limits options dramatically. When families talk openly about preferences, outcomes improve. Adult children may assume their parent would prefer institutional care to avoid being a burden. Parents may assume their children expect them to move into a facility. These unspoken assumptions create unnecessary anxiety. Honest dialogue can reveal creative solutions. The larger message is this: aging does not automatically equal relocation to a nursing home. It requires thoughtful adaptation. It requires education. It requires courage to question long-standing assumptions. But alternatives exist, and many are already working quietly in neighborhoods across the country. When we step back and look at all of these options together, something important becomes clear. The real issue is not simply where someone lives after a certain age. The deeper issue is whether they feel seen, valued, and in control of their own direction. Aging changes the body, yes. It may change how quickly you move, how much you can lift, or how long you can stand without resting. But it does not erase your need for dignity, purpose, and choice. For many older adults, the fear of a nursing home is not just about the building itself. It is about the loss of identity. It is about becoming a chart, a room number, or a diagnosis instead of a person with a lifetime of stories. That fear deserves to be acknowledged openly. At the same time, it is equally important to recognize that some people truly do require the level of medical supervision that skilled nursing facilities provide. Severe dementia, advanced neurological disease, complex wound care, or unstable medical conditions sometimes make higher-level care necessary. Choosing that option in those circumstances is not failure. It is responsible decision-making. The key is alignment. The level of care should match the level of need, not exceed it out of fear, and not fall short out of denial. One of the most powerful concepts in healthy aging is proactive planning. Waiting until after a fall, a stroke, or a hospitalization forces families into rushed decisions. Instead, begin the conversation early. Ask yourself a few honest questions. If my mobility declined, what kind of environment would feel safest and most comfortable? If my memory changed, who would I trust to advocate for me? If my income shifted, what financial structures would protect my housing stability? Advanced care planning also includes legal preparation. Establishing a durable power of attorney for healthcare and finances ensures that someone you trust can act on your behalf if you are temporarily or permanently unable to make decisions. Creating or updating a living will clarifies your preferences regarding medical interventions. These documents are not signs of pessimism. They are tools of empowerment. Health maintenance remains central to preserving options. Regular physical activity, even in modest amounts, helps maintain muscle mass, joint flexibility, and cardiovascular endurance. Strength training 2 to 3 times per week, under appropriate supervision if needed, can significantly reduce frailty. Balance exercises reduce fall risk. Walking supports circulation and mood. It is never too late to begin safely increasing movement, though it should always be done in consultation with a healthcare provider if chronic conditions are present. Cognitive engagement is equally vital. Reading, learning new skills, participating in discussions, or volunteering stimulate the brain. Social connection reinforces cognitive resilience. Studies consistently show that meaningful interaction protects mental health and may slow cognitive decline. That is why community-centered models like adult family homes, co-housing, and the village network can offer benefits that extend beyond logistics. They support the human need for belonging. Nutrition cannot be overlooked. As metabolism shifts with age, calorie needs may decrease, but nutrient needs often remain the same or even increase. Prioritizing protein, fiber, healthy fats, and micronutrients supports muscle preservation, digestive health, and immune function. If cooking becomes burdensome, shared meals or structured meal programs can prevent unintended weight loss and vitamin deficiencies. Hydration remains critical, as diminished thirst sensation can lead to chronic mild dehydration, which contributes to confusion and fatigue. Sleep also plays a crucial role. Poor sleep increases fall risk, impairs cognition, and worsens mood disorders. Maintaining a consistent bedtime routine, limiting caffeine later in the day, and addressing conditions such as sleep apnea can dramatically improve overall quality of life. As we consider all of this, I want to return to something deeply human. There's a passage from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, that has guided many people through difficult transitions. Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist who survived unimaginable suffering during the Holocaust, including imprisonment in multiple concentration camps such as Auschwitz. He lost nearly his entire family, Yet he observed that even in the harshest circumstances, individuals retained one final freedom: the ability to choose their attitude and their response. He wrote that everything can be taken from a person but one thing, the last of the human freedoms: to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. That message is profoundly relevant to aging. We cannot always control which medical conditions arise. We cannot stop time, but we can choose how we respond. We can choose to educate ourselves. We can choose to ask questions. We can choose to seek environments that honor who we are. When Dorothy decided she needed her own front door, she was not rejecting help. She was defining the terms under which she wanted to receive it. When older adults move into co-housing communities because they crave connection rather than because they are forced, they are choosing community on their own terms. When someone joins a village organization to remain in their longtime home with added support, they are choosing continuity and autonomy together. Aging in many ways is a series of adjustments. Each adjustment can feel like a loss if viewed only through the lens of decline. But it can also be seen as adaptation. When driving at night becomes difficult, perhaps daytime activities increase. When heavy yard work becomes too strenuous, maybe gardening shifts to smaller raised beds. When stairs feel risky, perhaps a bedroom is relocated to the main floor. Each shift is not surrender, it is strategy. Families, too, have choices. They can approach aging conversations with fear or with curiosity. They can avoid the topic until crisis forces action, or they can sit down over coffee and ask, "What would you want if..." Those conversations, while uncomfortable at times, are acts of love. The tragedy is not that some seniors eventually require nursing home care. The tragedy is when they arrive there believing they had no other path, when in reality other doors might have existed if only someone had shown them. If you or someone you care about is approaching this stage of life, take time to explore. Visit adult family homes, research co-housing communities, search for a village network in your area. Speak with healthcare professionals about realistic projections of care needs. Review finances, honestly. Make gradual adjustments rather than waiting for emergencies. Aging is not a problem to solve once and for all. It is an evolving process that asks for flexibility, preparation, and courage. With knowledge comes agency. With agency comes dignity. No matter which path is ultimately chosen, the goal remains the same: safety, health, connection, and a sense that your life still belongs to you. And that, perhaps, is the most important freedom of all.